6 things you should know or you should do when making your game. Um, some of these are kind of broad, and you kind of just need to fill in the blanks with you know, with your own information, right? It's gonna be more of a general thing to do when making your game, but I think that these tips will definitely help you throughout that process because it is a long process, very long process to make a game. Um, some of the stuff that I've talked about with different companies and just independent developers or even a decent size company developing games. Um, some of these are things that everybody kind of struggles with. So thought it'd be nice to get some audio going here. Oh, it's really loud. I'll wait for the rain to stop. We can turn it down actually. Wanted to. Hold on. Turn that down a bit. Alright, so let's go. Oh, it's probably gonna be in what is my rain settings at right now? Oh yeah, they're pretty loud. Okay. Alright, audio. Let's turn down our rain volume just a bit. There we go. Not too bad, I hope. There we go. Alright, so yeah. Um so yeah. So without further ado, let's get into this. So the 6 things that you should do when making your game. Um Earlier today I've been having a think about this pretty much all week. Um and what I've come to the conclusion is thing that they teach you in school about the 5 W's and then their cousin H. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. Um, you can answer all 6 of those, then you pretty much have a pretty good idea. Okay, but who? Start off with that. Who is your target audience when you're developing your game? And just in the beginning processes, and even throughout the span of your game, make sure you keep asking yourself, who is it that I'm targeting? Am I targeting, players that play a certain genre? Am I targeting, um, just the style of gameplay, that sort of thing? What niche does it fit into, right? When we talk about games and stuff like that, we talk about a lot of different niches. But you don't want a scope that's too small or a niche that's too packed, right? Because then the player base isn't a whole lot there, right? When we're talking about games like an FPS game, we know that FPSs are really popular, so that's a pretty large open niche. But it's kind of like a double-bladed sword, because if you have a very popular genre and you're just an FPS, then you're competing with a lot of people in the market, right? But then you want to tighten that niche just a little bit and say, okay, well, this is a first-person shooter looter, right? So you have to worry about looting and the actual FPS part of it. So it kind of tightens it down just a little bit more, right? And then you can keep going through that process, but don't make it to where at a certain point your target audience is very small, right? Um, so that way you can make some sales, you can make that connection with players and likewise. And maybe pull some people from different genres into it, right? Um, so that's pretty much the who, right? You just keep your target audience in mind throughout the entire process, right? Um, I think that's a very good place to start, is figuring out that target audience. The next part is what, right? What is your game going to be about? What game genre does it fit into, like we were just talking about, and how popular is that genre, right? So when we're talking about, let's continue with FPS. When we talk about FPS, right? FPS, first-person shooters, is a very popular genre. Um, there's like thousands of games out there that are specific to SPS. Um, but then you start getting into, you know, your other genres like racing or platformers or whatever. Um, when you're determining your what factor and what your game is going to be about, see what genres are kind of popping, right? Now, at the end of your development cycle, depending on how long it takes you to develop your game, that genre or that popping genre might change, right? So you got to kind of keep aware of that. Um, One thing I like to do often, and this is something I personally do, is I look at game ranks, right? It's a really good channel on YouTube. Highly recommend you checking them out. Um, but they have a lot of up and coming games, right? Or they'll talk about announcements of 2021 games that are coming out and stuff like that, things to look forward to. Um, and so I can kind of get a tell of what the next year or even 2 years is going to look like as far as what games are being developed, and what's going to come out during those time periods, right? If you're working on a game for 5+ years, you know, that's going to be a little hard to determine what genre is going to be popping, but it'll definitely give you a general sense of where that direction is going. Figure out, if you're making a racing game, figure out when the last Forza was released, right? Or any of the other ones, Need for Speed ones, and then take a look at their span of how long their their lifetime is between games. So typically it's like 5 years. They'll release the game, at least the AAA studios. Not always true, but for the most part it is. It's about 5 years difference, right? 4 to 5 years. Because they'll just keep selling that same game. I mean, look at Bethesda, right? With Skyrim. Skyrim's been out for a long time. And then they just kept making the same variations of it. Now, granted, they have a new game coming, but look and see how long that is, right? Yeah, and then see how popular that genre is, right? A lot of the things I like to do that I've tested in the past is I'll do a poll and see how many people want to see a new racing game, how many new people want to see a good survival game. Um, kind of doing your research into the market of what the current market is and what the future market is really going to help out to what kind of game you should make, right? Um, so yeah. Next is when, right? So when does your game take place, and when do you plan on releasing your game? I think when your game takes place is kind of I don't know, it's a broad question, right? But it's actually an interesting one that I've seen lately. So the reason why I bring up when your game takes place is look at games like Battlefield, right? Battlefield, is it Battlefield 1, I believe? It took place in is it World War II, World War I, something like that. The game didn't do so hot, right? And I think even with their latest announcement of the new Battlefield, they talked about, going, we're not going to go back to the World Wars, right? Um, and I think why that's an important question to ask yourself, or when it takes place, is because figure out, you know, does that time period that you're trying to make this game, does it sell, right? So you got medieval, you got futuristic, you've got modern, you've got post-apocalyptics, all that stuff. Heavy D's, hey, thanks for following there, buddy. Following. Um, so yeah, you got all these different time periods, but figure out which one is doing really well, right? Or figure out which one's been oversaturated, right? If everybody's making a cyberpunk game or, you know, futuristic game, that genre is going, or that time period is going to be oversaturated. Nobody's going to really want to play it because they're seeing too much of the same thing over and over again, right? Um, so I think asking yourself when is this going to take place is kind of a key when you're in the process of making your game, or at least, you know, developing the thoughts and moving forward. Um, the next one is when do you plan on releasing your game? So, you know, obviously you're gonna want to have an idea or even set a milestone. Say, you know, I want to release my game in a year or 6 months or, you know, even a year and a half, right? I'll spend half a year getting all my thoughts together, and then I'll spend the whole year to actually develop the game. Okay. Um, I think that also plays a part into, you know, the whole what question is into seeing what's popular and what's not. Um, but also, I think, you know, having an idea of what the genre or just the gaming industry is during that time period of when your projected date is really kind of crucial. I know it's something you can't really predict, um, but I don't know. I think that when you plan on releasing your game and setting a date or something like that, and of course that can be subject to change, right? You can say, "Oh, I want to make a game in 6 months," but it takes you a year. Um, but you don't want to. To me, you don't want to shoot out too far, right? Um, you don't want to say, "I'm going to spend 5 years making this game," or "I'm going to spend 10 years making this game." One, a lot of stuff's going to change in the industry, and you know, a lot of new things are going to come, a lot of old things are going to break, and you know, it just becomes a big mess. Especially for indies, I don't think that 5 year development plan um, is worth it to an indie, right? For an indie, you want to start small and grow big, right? Start off making, you know, a decent sized little game and see how well it does, sell it, make some money from it, and then use that money to make your next game, right? Um, Perfect example of that is Battlestate Games and Escape from Tarkov, right? Um, their first game was kind of a top-down archaic game, um, and they did really well, and they wanted to create, you know, Escape from Tarkov, and they did that, and then that's been in development for some time now, but the game's doing really well, right? And you can't predict which games are going to pop, which games aren't, but it's actually interesting because I watched the interview with Nikita, um, and he talked about that Escape from Tarkov was not his end game. Escape from Tarkov was supposed to bring the financial support that they needed to make their, you know, their game that they wanted to make, which was Russia 2028. Um, so it's actually really interesting how sometimes that stuff happens, right? You don't know what's going to be popular, but you know that same principle still applies. So if he was starting off small, and then now he had, you know, Escape from Tarkov blew up, but he now has a team that can do all these different things, and the game's great, and blah blah blah. So it is a good question to ask. Now, I think another big one, and I actually stress this one out a lot, is, and this kind of goes back to what platform are you going to release on, and where are you going to release to, or who you're going to release to. Um, because I think that also plays a major role into the game itself, right? So one thing that I tell developers one thing I ask developers all the time is where they plan to release their game. Um, and the most common answer I get is I don't know. I have no idea. And that's fine, but that's something you need to keep in mind throughout, beginning, middle, and end. And here's why. You want to keep this in mind because each platform or publisher that you release to, like Steam or what have you, all of them will require certain specs and all these different things that you have to conform to before you can even release on their platform, right? Steam again is my perfect example of this. If you look at Steam's platform, you look at their games. 8 gigabytes of RAM is the requirements. You don't really want to go above that. You want to keep your RAM usage as low as possible. Um, and there's a few reasons for that, and we can get into that if you guys want to. But yeah, you want to keep that as low as possible. But just having those requirements and knowing what your platform takes. So when you're in the development process and let's say you made your world, then you can make a build, see if it's gonna fit that specs, regardless if the game's done or not. You should be making builds throughout the span of your development and making sure that your RAM usage is low, your GPU's not maxing out, your CPU's not maxing out. Um, Run different programs with it. Run Discord with it. Run, a streaming service with it, right? You should be doing all those things because by the time you get done with process, and I've seen this numerous times where a developer will come to me and be like, "Hey, I've got this major issue now. I need to downscale," or "Hey, now I can upscale because I didn't do this," and it becomes so much of a hassle to do that if you're going through the process and not checking those small little things that takes 10-15 minutes to do. Um, so definitely recommend doing that. And like I said, just knowing who you're going to publish with, who you are going to, you know, be with to sell your game and stuff like that. Now, and then figure out their requirements and be like, well, Steam allows me to sell on Steam, but they don't limit me, so I can sell on Epic. Does Epic allow me to cross sell and stuff like that as long as they're the same price and what have you? Well, yes, okay, now I can do that. Or, can I make my own launcher and sell on Steam at the same time? Yes, you can do that as long as you're not over, selling your game less than what you're selling on Steam. Um, so all those things are really good to keep in mind throughout the entirety of the process, right? Um, and that goes into where, yeah. So why? And I think the why question is always missed a lot. Why are you making this game? Why do you want to make this game? Why do you want to sell this game? What's your reason for doing what you're doing, right? And I've gotten a lot of interesting responses on this. I've got, I want to do it. I want to make this game because I've always wanted to make a game. I want to do this because I want to make a game that I'm going to enjoy. Or I want to do this because I want to get rich. I've seen a lot of answers come through. Now, there's one answer there that I just said that I don't like, and I'll tell you why. If you're doing this to become rich, you're in it for the wrong reasons. It's just that simple. One, you're probably not, being realistic, you're not going to get rich off of it. Unless your game blows up and it's just heaven on earth, which could happen, don't get me wrong, but if you're going in with the mindset, making your first game, or even your second game, saying, I'm going to go in here and make this game because I want to be rich from it. Oh, Camel. Hey, thanks for the prime, buddy. What's up, buds? How you doing? But yeah, if you're going in there saying, I want to be rich, So I'm gonna make this game, or I'm going to, I'm gonna follow suit of like the battle royale scene, right? I'm gonna make a battle royale because that's what's popping right now, and I'm gonna make a lot of money from it. Chances are that's not gonna happen, right? So you're in it for the wrong reasons. Your motivation shouldn't be to be rich. And like I said, it's not that it can't happen, but more than likely it's not, right? Um, Now, I think the biggest thing to, ask yourself, excuse me, to ask yourself is, if I make this game, what's my end goal for this game? Determine your success from the beginning. Okay. It's kind of a little bonus one right here. And I think once you determine what your version of success is, you can't disappoint yourself, right? The gaming industry is a very hard industry, right? Not only is it hard to make the game, but it's hard to do everything else that comes with it, right? And everybody that's on my channel or watching this, you guys know that making a game is not easy. It's a very time-consuming process. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna love it. You're going to want to Control Alt Delete, throw the computer out the window. It's it's just one of those things, right? Maybe you've got financial issues that happen randomly while you're in the process of making your game. Maybe you feel like the game that you're going to design isn't going to be good and nobody's going to want to play it. All these different things. Throw it out the window. Hey, what's up, Josh? I'm behind you. What's up, buddy? Yeah, throw it out the window. Control Alt Delete. But yeah. Heavy D's. Hey, thanks, buddy. So yeah, you're gonna hate it. You're gonna love it. But there's so many things that maybe are thought about. You've thought about the process of, okay, I'm going to think about my game. I'm going to make a game plan. I'm going to make a roadmap. I'm going to design the game. I'm going to try to find funding for it. I'm going to start my social media. I'm going to get my website together. I'm going to get all of these things, right, together. And it's going to be a smooth sailing process. No. There's so many aspects that go into it. And I think that, once you get that mindset of all these different things, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Right? And then I think the biggest struggle is learning your own self-control. I hear stories and people have come up to me and, they've talked to me about their process and their journey of game development. And I hear them, well, I quit my job and, I didn't want to waste another minute. I wanted to design games and that's what I'm going to do. That's great. If you can do that, fantastic. Right? But not everybody can do that realistically, right? Some people have to go and work 2 jobs and then on their free time, on the weekends for 2 hours, they can get away long enough to start their development process, right? Or, maybe you did have enough savings and you could quit your job, but now you're developing your game, but something big came up, right? And now you're in a financial crisis and you don't have a job, but you're trying to make a game, and then the stress just keeps on piling, right? All those things happen, and I think the biggest thing that I've seen is taking breaks, right? Taking breaks is a good and a very bad thing from game development. It's a good thing because you can de-stress, right? You can get whatever's going on together. you can de-stress, and you could come back and be like, okay, I'm ready to go, right? But then you take that break, and you have these thoughts that come through, and you're like, you know what? Maybe I should change this. Maybe I should do this. You know, and then now you're totally going off scope than what your original design was, right? And so just be careful of that, right? And I think what I've said to everybody that's either seen me or I've talked to in the development world or whatever is don't give up, right? Do not give up. Because honestly, you can do it. You can make a game. It may take longer than what your projected time period is, or you may go through 6,000 struggles before you get there, but when you finally get there and you make that game and you hit that button or whatever, it's going to be the best thing, right? One, don't be an asset flipper. Buy assets and putting them together so the game barely works. 100%. 100% no name. You know, but I also think, and I'm not going to call out the person together, or the person I'm thinking of, but there's a big difference with asset flipping, um, that definitely needs a lot more clarification, right? So it's okay to buy an asset and use it, um, and what have you, right? It's okay to have the asset. I don't know. What's a good asset? Environmental asset. Lord Infel. Let's just go with Lord Infel. If you're on the asset store, you know that one. Lord Infel is a really cool asset. Diarrhea Studios. Hey, what's up, buddy? Um, what's up, Buffalo? I don't know why I said that. What's up, Buffalo? But Lord Infel is a really cool asset. It's really nice, right? That doesn't mean that you can't make that place the main part of your game and add a whole bunch of stuff to it, right? To me, that's not asset flipping, right? If I buy Lordenfell and I make it my main town, right? But I've got, the buildings and stuff that you can go into, or, I've added 6,000 NPCs into the area, and, it's as long as it's designed to the function of what you anticipated, right? If it's just a demo scene and you threw that thing in there and you hit sell, that's an asset flip, okay? Um, Even if it's like, what was that? I think a perfect example is the dragon. The green wyvern is a perfect example. I need a drink. Hold on one second. The green wyvern. Okay. I hate when people see that and they immediately jump to asset flip. Here's why. If you guys have seen my game with um, Tyler Smith, Reign of Darkness, you'll see that we're using uh, the green wyvern. Okay. To get that asset to work in the way that we needed it to work, we had to add so many lines of code. We've had to add so many lines of code to our character so the character can actually mount the dragon and then fly it around. You know, all those different things. But we took the base of what that asset was and we expanded on it drastically. Drastically. Okay? We expanded, right? So to me, at that point, that asset is no longer an asset flip. We took it, we did something with it. Okay? Big difference into that versus taking a demo scene, putting in an FPS thing, and then just going around in the box shooting each other. Okay? Big difference. But yeah, good point though. Just messing with Lordenfell. Yeah, Lordenfell's a really cool asset. Um, all right, last one's how, right? How are you gonna do it? How are you gonna make it? What are the fun's gonna be like? What engine should you use? That's a good topic. Um, Unity is always my go-to engine. Um, yes, before you've asked, I have used Unreal. I don't mind Unreal, but I prefer Unity, right? It was good for me when I first started learning game design. And I'm not speaking so much on the whole procedural worlds aspect. Um, I was using Unity before I ever started working for procedural worlds. I actually used procedural worlds asset. I used Gaia 1 before I ever started working for procedural worlds. And I was making ozone effect and going through that process. But um, yeah, so I use Unity, right? And you can watch tons of YouTube videos all day long about which is better, Unity or Unreal. Um, but to me, it's personal preference, right? Um, does Unreal have a slight advantage? Sure, right? I could kind of see it. Um, but Unity to me is so much, or it's so easy. It's what I'm trying to say. It's very user friendly, right? Um, yes, there's times you want to control alt delete on Unity as well, but it's overall it's a good engine, right? And then you have stuff like Procedure Worlds, which we try to make that development process easier for you. And as you can see in the video right now, this scene was made with Gaia Pro, with the Procedure Worlds Sky, and everything that you see here is straight out of the box of Gaia Pro. I was messing around with Gina a little bit on this scene as well. Um, but it's just a gorgeous scene to me. Look at this, chat. I've got the TOD a little fast because I wanted to cycle through day and night cycle. Jumping so I don't have to hear those annoying footsteps. I took off some of the footsteps, but apparently left some on. Look at that pollen. I hope that's going through pretty good. But, yeah. So finding out the engine, right? Finding out what your funds are like. Are you trying to make a game with 0 funds? It's possible. Not recommended, but it's possible. Okay. And I think I might do a video on that, on how to make a game with 0 funds. I might do that in the upcoming future. But yeah, Unity is a good engine to use to make your game. And I think it's for, not only for the beginners, but it's also good for the advanced, right? Great example is Battle State games. Look at Escape from Tarkov, right? The first game was made on Unity. Escape from Tarkov was made on Unity. We've had other really good games like Rust, Plague Incorporated, which is a good little phone game if you've ever played that. I don't know if they made a desktop version, but it was a pretty fun little game. The Forest, Firewatch, and there's so many more that I can't count them. And you can use actually Unity for a lot of different things, right? We've seen short films come from Unity. I think one of my favorites is Adam. That was a really cool series. I don't know if they're going to do more with that, but, I hope they do, because it'd be really cool. But yeah, we've seen a lot of really cool games come with Unity. We've seen a lot of indie games, some really good indie games come from Unity that are now really successful and popular. So to say that Unreal's got it all is, not true in my opinion. Unreal is a good engine. Don't get me wrong. I think to me it was a little rough to start with, right? To start my process of development, I did not like it. I didn't know anything about the engine. I see. It seemed like Unity had so many more tutorials than Unreal, right? You had people like Brackeys and Skyku and some of the goats of game dev, and the Messy Coder. He's done a lot of good ones too. You've had those guys that have been here for some time putting out content. And then you had like the Blender guru who made Blender and Unity projects and stuff like that. So, to me, there was so much more offered in Unity than there was with Unreal when I first got into it. The asset store was super easy to me in Unity. Um, it was just a lot more user friendly, in my opinion. Disco Asylum, Meathead, Wastelands 3. Is Wastelands 3 made in Unity? I didn't know that. Each one serves its purpose. I like Unity because of ease of use, and I had a 1050 Ti at the time I started out, and I stuck with it. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Not gonna lie. Like my computer, yes, it's not a monster of a computer, but it does exactly what I need it to. I think I've got a 1070, I believe, and I can do pretty much anything. I got 64 gigabyte RAM, 15 terabytes of SSD, and an i7 8700 series. I'm actually gonna have to upgrade my computer before too much longer, but no, it served its purpose to what I'm doing. Right, you don't need crazy specs. I do recommend more than 8 gigabytes of RAM, because you're gonna run into a lot of issues. But recommend Windows for you Mac users out there. I feel so sorry for you. But yeah. Uh, both W3 and W2. Cuphead. Oh yeah, Cuphead. Was Cuphead made? Yeah, it was. Yeah, I do remember seeing that now. I built myself an impressive machine. I still haven't gotten anywhere. Yeah, I built mine. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, it's served its purpose. The only thing I've done since I built it was change RAM and hard drive space. That's about it. Um, I'm actually thinking about going to the 3080. I think I want to do that, but I'm not sure yet. I don't like the layout. It's the only problem. I don't like the layout of the 3080, but and I don't know if my motherboard's compatible with it. Only other downside. But yeah. So that's my 6 things you should know when you're making your game. Um, and I'm gonna put that on YouTube, guys. Oh, and by the way, my YouTube is up for those that have put out to the Games Made with Procedure Worlds. Those videos are on my YouTube. You can check them out, watch them. My audio was a little bad, um, but hopefully now I think I got my audio fixed now. I'm hoping. So I think I missed all 6. Yeah, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Ask yourself those questions, man. Um, yeah, I've been thinking about this for some time, and every single question that I asked myself when it came to development followed along the 5 W's, and I'm like, huh, all right. And then I just start putting shit together. But what I think is it's interesting, some of the questions that we ask ourselves in the beginning process and how much they change throughout the development process. Um, it's very interesting. And I think, one of the biggest things that I struggled with when I was, trying to design my first game and getting into all of this was some of these questions that I had, who should I publish with, or um, all these different things. The answers weren't there. I mean, yes, you can go and find them and kind of figure it out for yourself. And I'm not gonna persuade you to say, hey, go with Steam or go with Epic or make your own launcher. Ultimately, that's your choice. You know what I mean? I do think that selling on Steam is a good starter to get more, your game out further, because Steam is a trusted platform. And then when you make your games, you start to build up a community, you start to build up that relationship. Think about making your own launcher, right? Doing all of your own stuff, because Steam does take such a large percentage. Um, the money that you're gonna make from it is not very much, in my opinion, compared to how many copies you sell, right? Um, so pick your poison with that. Epic is a little better, but they're not. They are popular, but I don't think they're as popular as Steam. I don't know. I'll have to see about that one. Actually, let's do that now because I'm really curious about that. So let's check this out real quick. So let's see. Daily accounts on Steam. That's not bad. So about 22.5 million concurrent. Yeah, concurrent users. That's not bad. Not bad at all. So what's Epic? I'd be happy with 100. Epic Store has 61 million active monthly users. Really? I was thinking that Epic was a little lower than Steam. One billion registered accounts, 95 million active monthly users. If this gives a different answer. I don't want game. How many Steam users are there in 2020? Or 120 million. Okay. So 120 million versus 95 million? Huh. So yeah, they're pretty close together, right? I didn't think they were that close, but that is interesting. Can anyone put their game on Epic? I believe so. Yeah, you just have to follow the requirements and specs and stuff like that. Epic has free games every 15 days or so, so it's bumping its active user base. Interesting. Yeah, I did see that they had free games, and I think I even got maybe one or two of them. But I didn't think they were that popular. Like I knew they were popular. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't think they were like practically surpassing Steam at this point. That's interesting. But Epic takes less of a percentage than Steam, right? Steam takes I think 30% unless you make 100 mil or 100,000, 100 mil. I don't know. You have to make a lot of money before they'll drop it down to 25%. I know that. I just don't remember how much it is. So, you know. But yeah, that's really interesting actually. Didn't think that. You will be hit twice if you make over XXX amount with Unity free in whatever service you use to sell the game. Interesting. You hit twice if you make. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that's pretty standard, but that happens with Steam as well, right? Well, Pillars of Eternity, Civ is actually one of my favorite games. Civ 6, Civ 5, Civ 6, Civ 5. I think it's Civ 5 with Gods and Kings. One of my favorite. I think I have the most hours in that than I do anything. I don't know. Maybe Escape from Tarkov's got me beat all day, but Civ 5, man. Oh, Gods and Kings, all the expansions. I played the crap out of Civ 5. Very quite popular games, yeah. Yeah. Maybe they have a better filters. Steam is getting hard to find anything. Yeah, that that is true. I think that it's easier to get on Steam maybe than it is on Epic, and there's a lot of games coming through Steam, and a lot of really terrible games coming through Steam, which is really interesting to me because you when you design your game and you have it finished and blah blah blah, you go through that process. They stop green light, but now they've got this new thing, but they're supposed to be checking these games out, and I think Steam can be a lot better with this, right? A lot of times we see some crap games come through. Um, I've seen, I'm not going to call this guy out, but there's a guy on YouTube that, pretty easy for you to find, that reviews crappy games or scam games. Um, and there's so many on Steam because the actual verification process and I don't think that any of the games actually get looked at. I don't know why, but you know, there's a lot of games out there for like $5-10 that you look at it and you're like, why is this even here? Like, this isn't a game. Yeah, I was wrong. He hit me too. Yeah, one more turn. Yeah, dude. Oh my god. That one more turn leads into like 6 more hours into the next day. I was really bad about that. I was really bad. I used to play Civ all night long. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm going to get off by like 10, 11. And then it's like 6 o'clock the next morning. You're like, shit. I've got to be at work in an hour. That struggle is real. But, that's all part of it. When are you going to be doing the next game, PW Game Showcase? Pretty soon, actually. I did finally upload my videos to the YouTube. Of the last 2 games made with Procedure Worlds, I think. Exclamation mark YouTube. Oh, oop, bunk. Yeah, wait, is that it? Yep, that's it. So I'm gonna start. So I made this channel, guys. This is where I'm gonna post all these videos. This video of the 6 things you should do when making your game, I'm gonna post them here. The Procedure World stuff is gonna be on the Procedure Worlds channel. I want to keep that separate because I'm not gonna flood, Procedure Worlds YouTube. Because I plan on making a lot of these types of videos. I hope that they help, and that's. Oh, thanks, bud. I don't know why I have notifications on right now, but whatever. I hope these videos help, and that's the whole point of all of these different things that I'm trying to do. With the games made with Procedure Worlds, you can see all these different things and how people are making their games and stuff like that, and maybe get some ideas or, what have you. And then, these type of tips and tricks and that sort of thing, I definitely want to start doing a lot more of. Some of the information might be a little bit boring, but I think it's quite helpful. And like I said, when I was going through this process, I had all these questions. Like some of these questions that I just went over, and the who, what, when, where, why. I've searched everywhere. And even when I was kind of pulling this together, I was doing a little bit of searching and stuff like that. I couldn't find any answers to any of my questions. I was trying to put myself in the mindset of, I'm fresh and I've got my computer built and, I want to make a game. And then, I couldn't find any of these answers. So I was like, you know what? This could be a good video to have. Hoping I can make it the cut. Keep hitting snags. Ouch. Well, let's keep at it. You'll get it. What were the 6 tips? Okay, so we can kind of briefly go through them again. So, like I said, it's about the 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. So, figuring out your target audience, right? And what niche does your game fit into? And is your niche too small, right? Once you figure that out, right, it's really important to consider, because you don't, one, you want to define your game right off the bat, right? You want to define that target audience. If I'm planning on making a survival game, right? Well, my target audience is survival, right? But then the next part that comes with that is the niche, right? Or the subgenre of the genre of the genre. Then you're asking yourself, okay, well, there's a lot of survival games out there. So what type of survival game is mine going to be? Is it going to be a horror survival? Is it going to be a hardcore realistic survival? Is it going to be whatever the case may be? Is it going to be a racing survival? Like, I don't know. But the more you start adding on to those niches, the smaller your scope is, and your the harder it is going to be to sell your game, right? And then you don't want it too broad because then you're just in with the masses, right? One in a billion. So finding that fine line of what, that scope is going to be and how it's going to look is really important, right? Um, it's not so much something you can control, but you can keep it in mind when you're in the development process. Um, and that's more of what I was getting at. Um, and then the next part was what is your game going to be about? What genre does it fit into, which kind of goes into who, and how popular is that genre, right? So that 1 in a million, right? If I'm making an FPS and that's all it is, then it's 1 in a million. If I'm making a looter shooter, okay, now we kind of narrowed down the scope. But if I'm making a looter shooter survival, okay, now that's more of a very tight niche that's not too small, but it's not too big. So that's kind of what I would go for, right? Um, so that type of thing. And then, what is it going to be about? And I think, that's just a question you need to ask yourself anyways, is what is this game going to be about? Is it going to be, a single player, multiplayer, right? Single player is easier to start off with, and you go multiplayer if you wanted to, or if the game gets popular, if you get a lot of requests. I always highly recommend single player first because it's easier to develop, and then, make some money, hire some people, or then spend the time with multiplayer and get it in. Perfect example of this is The Forest, right? The Forest started off as a single player game with Unity. It blew up. They added multiplayer. Perfect example, right? Um, and then with every release of a popping new game, which is referred to as the trend, it's important to see what games are coming out at the same time and what's popping, right? So figuring out, does this game that I want to make, is it too is it in the popping trend right now, right? And when the big whole battle royale scene came into place, right? Everybody and their moms were making battle royale games, right? Like, and we saw some weird, crappy stuff come through. We saw some really cool stuff come through. Um, but once ride that bandwagon for a while, it gets super popular super quick and then dies out really hard. Which kind of happened, kind of not. It's still keeping it alive. The battle royale scene's actually going pretty strong, but it was also something different to FPSs that we could do, right? And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, but also that trend, depending on the next part is when your game's going to be released, because that trend could go on for, let's say, 6 to 8 months to a year, and your development process is 2 years, but by the time you make that battle royale, that trend's gone. So now you're stuck with the battle royale. People are probably tired of battle royales, and you're left in a really bad place, right? That's not to say the game won't do good, but it's gonna struggle probably, right? Statistically speaking, that type of game would struggle if that was the case. Um, so yeah, when do you plan on releasing a game? When does your game take place? And that, I think, when does your game take place is a very critical question to ask, I think. Because I think that is something that is very overlooked a lot, right? And what got me thinking about that is Battlefield, is what I said earlier. Um, and Battlefield with the whole, World War One, World War Two, whatever time period that was, they got heavily bashed for it. They've got, it was those type of time periods, and especially in FPSs, are so overly saturated that it's like, oh my god, all right, another World War game. All right, cool, right? Or if medieval games are popping, or they steadily have been coming out for the last 2 years, 3 years, like, oh great, another medieval game, you know. So understanding of or Cyberpunk, right? Cyberpunk just came out. Great. There's another futuristic game. So just know that what time period does your game take place in? Kind of feel it out, right? Make sure that it's not overly saturated. And that's a big one. Yeah, and then why do you want to make the game? Do you want to make the game become rich? If so, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And I think, getting that why question is a very important question you need to ask yourself. Why are you doing this? You're doing it because you want to make games and that's something you always wanted to do. Fantastic. You're doing it because you want to make a game, be proud of it, and then have your friends and your family play it. Go for it, right? You're doing it to be rich. You're in the wrong field, buddy. You're in the wrong field. Um. So yeah, again, not to say that you can't, but that shouldn't be your main motivation. Okay. And then how are you gonna make it and what the funds are like? And I think you came in about then.